Hello, everyone, and welcome to this bonus episode of Revolutions Per Movie. I'd like to introduce my guests who are going to help me discuss 1987's Slumber Party Massacre 2. And if we're to believe that we are what we consume, Jim Hickcox is the first third of each of a great pile of books, a smattering of aesthetically adventurous films, and an endless landslide of sandwiches. And if we were to choose to define a person by what they create, he's the same. Jim is the director of the films Soft Matter and Slow Creep, among others, and is the co-host of the Synesthesia podcast for Split Tooth Media, which Craig Wright is the founder and editor-in-chief of. Split Tooth Media is an independent publication that still believes in long-form writing about film and music, and he also hosts the Split Picks podcast and also plays drums for the Portland country band Lee Walker and the Sleep Talkers. And it is my great pleasure to welcome the Revolutions Per Movie, Craig Wright and Jim Hickcox. Hey, guys.
Hey, Chris.
Hello, how's it going?
Thanks for having us.
Good. I'll do this.
Spooky.
Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Jim's intro is way better than mine. Wow, I went literal for it.
I didn't think about you having to read it out loud. I used tough words. I'm sorry.
It's hot, cold. I like it. It's a relationship. If you both came in hot, then this wouldn't be the dynamic we need.
You can't make a storm cloud without both temperatures.
That's right. Hey, before we get into it, Jim, I'd like to congratulate you on having. Well, this is maybe a little bit of a spoiler alert for Slow Creep, but having a kind of a fantastic dance sequence within your film.
Thank you.
Did you know you were going to do that? Like, was that the reason you made it? Like, did you know it was going to end that way?
I knew pretty early on it would end that way, but that wasn't why I made the movie.
Okay. It's just so weird. It's like I did not see it coming. And then it's just like tonally so different and cool. And, I just was pretty impressed that it just made this shift. And it's like quite a lengthy musical sequence.
Yeah, it's a whole song.
Yeah. So
I had a couple people tell me that I needed to take that off if I was going to set it to any festivals, but I didn't.
I'm so glad you didn't.
What was their logic behind that? Like, they're just too scared that it was untraditional, or?
Yeah, they were like, it's too weird. They were like, it's like a fairly, it's a little bit of a weird movie, but it's like certainly within the realm of rubber monster movies.
Sure.
And then that dance sequence at the end it is just a little out of left field. I guess to me it feels very cohesive. But,
agreed.
But I think, it's like, it's not what people expect at the end of a monster movie necessarily.
I feel like having the video store, the horror movie fans are the most critical fans of all, because they are like, this is too scary. It's not scary enough. This is too gory. It's not gory enough. This is dumb. This is really funny. And they're kind of looking for all these different things. They can never find it either.
Sure.
They seem like they're on this endless chase to be like, I know what I'm looking for, but they also are the most forgiving audience. Like, they keep going back to the well over and over again. So when somebody comes to you and says, it's too weird, is that true within the fan base? Or
one of the reasons, I think maybe this is, one of the reasons that I work a lot in genre film when I'm making movies is that I sort of got into movies through experimental movies. And I like that. I like formal experimentation. I enjoy doing it. And I find that in the genre world, people are much more open to formal experimentation. I think if you're making like a straightforward drama or a straightforward comedy and you start doing things that are too weird, people are like, this isn't a movie anymore. But people in the genre world are so used to watching weird things that are trying risky moves that I think they're a lot more open to finishing the movie and thinking about it,
Right.
Which maybe comes from that sort of quest for some kind of platonic ideal where they're like, there's something perfect out there and they know they can't find it, but everything, so nothing's ever going to measure up. So you might as well give everything a spin.
And it's impossible.
Yeah.
Like, I was a famous monster kid.
Sure.
Fangoria was too much for me. I was like, I remember when Famous Monsters made the switch to competing with Fangoria and put Jason on the cover of, a magazine. And I just was like, too scared. So it is to me, I'm still very naive in the genre. Of course, I know the hits, you know, the things I love, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and you know, a lot of new ones. Like I really like that film Raw that came out not long ago, you know, a couple years ago, and Cronenberg. But there's a lot of things that I'm just like, yeah, like I'm just too much of a wimp or something.
Well, it also, I think, takes a certain personality type to be like digging through the bins. You know what I mean? To be like looking at the $2 DVDs made by weirdos and being like, well, this might have something.
What's amazing about this film, this is a $2 DVD film that grossed millions. I mean, both the films, I think, Craig, you brought it to my attention, Slumber Party Massacre 1. And I didn't see it recently until it was on Criterion under the high school horror thing in October. And I was like, oh, Criterion, bless your heart. You know, they're kind of swinging hard. And, you know, I watched it. And Craig, you mentioned, is it you that prefers the first one over the second one? Or is it somebody you knew? Or
I prefer the second one. My brother and I argue because he likes he likes the second one more. I like the first one more. I think the first one's a better movie overall, but if you say we're watching one of these, it's always going to be number 2, especially if you have a group. Like, I don't know of a more fun movie.
Well, it's definitely more fun than the first one, but what do you love about the first one before we get into the second?
Are you familiar with the background of it at all, how it came to be? It was written as a parody.
And then Corman basically pushed it into not a parody.
Yeah, he said, like, you know, it needs the typical boobs, butts, and blood to be a Corman-produced movie. And so they kind of shifted it to be like, okay, well, maybe it'll be a little more serious. And it was written as, like, the writer's name.
Rita Mae Brown.
Rita Mae Brown. She wrote it as, like, a feminist parody on horror movies. And then in the process of making it, it became more of a straight-up slasher film. But it's kind of like Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, where it was like, it's written to be funny, but they didn't like tell everyone it should be a comedy. So it has these parts that are really funny, but they come across as like pretty straight up slasher. And I just love how it lands, because it does mix in funny when it's, you know, most movies would kind of ditch the comedy when it's getting to the should be scary ending, but it just keeps staying funny. And like, what other movie has the killer take a nap? Come on.
It's true. And it's so funny. It made $3.6 million at the box office and only took 200,000 to make. And, you know, having the video store and just remembering the glut of things we were bringing in at the time, straight to video. And so, of course, sequels, you gotta make one, right? Is it rare that a sequel can be better in the horror genre than the first one?
I think no.
I'm kind of with you, because I think a lot of times the first one is like, here's a good idea, and then they can, if they're smart, they get weirder. And this one most definitely gets weirder.
I think I would say the majority of horror sequels don't get weirder, right? They're like, it's always people being scared. That's always the problem in movies, right? It's producers being like, we need to make another one, and it has to be exactly like the things that we think people liked in the first one. And those sequels, which I think is most of them, are bad.
Right.
But in almost every franchise, there's at least one where someone comes in and is like, there's something that excites me about this, and I'm going to explore that element of it. And those movies are almost always great.
Like what would be some perfect ones for that? Evil Dead 2, maybe?
Oh, Evil Dead 2 is a good example. I always, my go-tos are like, most of the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels, maybe, I think are actually great.
I was just gonna say New Nightmare is my favorite one. Yeah,
I'm a big Halloween 3 guy, even though that's like in the broadest sense exploring an alternate interest. I'm also an Exorcist 3 guy, which is I think there's a bunch. I think
Texas Chainsaw.
Oh, Chainsaw 2.
I'm gonna say Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 because
also
that one
incredible.
I would say is kind of one of the only movies you could compare to Slumber Party Massacre 2, where it was like, you know what, we had a great thing going. What if we dye it neon and then make everything explode?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's so weird. Again, Amy Holden Jones directed the first one, and this one was directed by Deborah Brock, who also did Rock and Roll High School Forever. Right. Again, another weird sequel that is not even near what The other one is, Rock and Roll High School has the Ramones. Rock and Roll High School Forever has Corey Feldman. Again, executive produced by Roger Corman. Bigger budget, and sold really well. Won the Gold Video Cassette Award for VHS top selling.
Oh, that's an honor no one will ever receive
time.
again. That's so sad.
I know, isn't that cool? Like the Gold Video Cassette Award. I just remember, when I started the video store, kind of at the tail end of little indie stores being able to pop up in '96, because Blockbuster and Hollywood were putting them all out of business. I just remember getting, screeners and posters and industry trade magazines, and every day just stuff, standees, all sorts of promotional stuff. And by the time I closed the store, it was like, we're not even making posters anymore. And we're not doing anything. And it was just like, we're not even celebrating this industry anymore, let alone even a DVD award. It was really wild to see that. But I just remember coming into it and just realizing this is such a weird industry. It is so massive, and they are really into celebrating these milestones in terms of sales.
I remember seeing recently somebody online was celebrating or selling, I don't remember, a promotional item that was given to video stores that was like a little statue that I think was from Return of the Living Dead sequel, which is, all things told, not the biggest budget thing to be promoting, but they like sent out little busts of a character or something to different stores, right?
I had so many weird things. My favorite was the Bourne Supremacy Post-it notes. They sent me a giant cardboard box. In the box was probably 100 of the chunky things. And I, would give them out. But it was just one of those things where it's like, why did you spend money on a Bourne Supremacy Post-it note?
What's the line there? What connects those ideas?
It's going to be on your desk forever.
Like, does Jason Bourne write a lot of little notes?
Not like one of those things where somebody takes it home and they're like, you know what?
Yeah.
I need to own the Bourne Supremacy DVD so I can, this has got me thinking. It was a weird industry, and they overspent on things.
Sure.
I just remember all sorts of weird stuff. But Slumber Party Massacre 2 came out in '87, where the original came out 5 years before. It is a total new wave teen fest, fever dream, pop music, heavy metal, rock and roll is the enemy, sex is bad, all the perfect things, but it is so tonally different than the first one. One of the weird threads in it is there's a couple songs by a band called Wednesday Week, who Crystal Bernard from Wings plays the lead character in this, Courtney. And she is in a garage band. Like literally they're a garage band, kind of a, all female band playing kind of, new wave rock pop. But the weird thing about Wednesday Week, which they lip sync to, is it was a real band that originally was called Goat Deity, and it had Steve Wynn from the Dream Syndicate and a member of the Urinals in it.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's really weird. And then they became Narrow Adventure. Steve left, and the member from the Urinals left, and the two sisters, Christy and Kelly Cannon, stayed on. And they became Wednesday Week, and they even recorded for Enigma Records with Don Dixon, who worked on Murmur and Chronic Town and Reckoning with Mitch Easter. So it's so weird because you're watching the film and you stop. I'm like, is this a real song?
Yeah.
What is? Did they write this? Is there a soundtrack? And all of a sudden you're like, Steve Wynn, what's going on here? It is such a weird thread to put into this movie.
I didn't do any of that research, but I did take pause both times that band plays a song, because I was like, this just feels different, right? It doesn't feel like if you're watching Josie and the Pussycats and they're playing a very polished pop song that was clearly like written by famous people for them, but it feels cohesive with the movie. The songs in this movie very much feel like they're just dropping songs in and then making these people pretend they're playing them.
Well, they're very time specific. Like
Yeah.
it does sound a bit like something in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a polished, kind of jangly, surprising, you know, pop song. That's not like a synth driven song.
Right.
It's like a guitar song. And the lip syncing's pretty good.
It is pretty
like I was shocked, you know, that was amazing. And I kind of was like, oh, I wish this wasn't a horror film. I wish this was a film about their band.
Like a Fabulous
wanna
Stains, but for this
yeah,
band.
I was like, yeah, like a very cut rate Fabulous Stains, you know, a safer
Yeah.
Fabulous Stains. I don't think they're going to have as many people trying to follow their fashion sense.
Sure.
But yeah, it was kind of an amazing start to the film.
Yeah.
There's a lot of joy in that garage.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah. And then the would-be boyfriend drives up and, you know, hangs out a bit. And you know,
Do you know who he is?
I don't.
This was the fun fact I learned yesterday. So he is Patrick Lowe, whose brother is Rob.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, the low they don't talk about.
Cut rate.
Yeah.
Low.
You can't unsee
low
it,
budget,
though. Once
Rob.
it's like,
Rob.
Okay.
Rob low
Wow.
production value.
Yeah, it definitely has a feel of, maybe if we went through everyone's IMDb page, it would be, oh, this is nepotism central. Like everybody's related to somebody else's cousin, sister, brother.
I mean,
But-
Craig, you found that Atana stuff. Did you look into him at all? We haven't gotten to him yet,
Okay.
but I've read a bunch about
Should we
that.
maybe
fella.
just
Oh yeah,
introduce him
no,
quick?
I've got a whole bunch of thoughts on him coming up.
Okay, all right,
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll tease Atanas. Also, it is some of the most clumsy sexuality I've ever seen in terms of, hey, let's have a pillow fight,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, I just need to take my shirt off because I'm just getting tired and sweaty, and it's just very of the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, this is a rated R horror film with young people in it. So there's going to be a lot of nudity and sexual tension, which brings me to, before we get into the main villain of the film, I want to talk about TJ, the character
Yeah.
who is one of the most unlikable screen characters I've ever seen in my
Sure.
life, played by a guy named Joel Hoffman. This guy gave me such the heaviest creep vibes. And I just was like, why isn't he dead yet? Why isn't he dead yet? He is so, you talk about the lechery early on.
Yeah.
He is so lecherous and horrible and gross. And it makes the 80s sex comedies like, it's just a distillation and then an acceleration of all that weird 80s, you know, horniness that's in Hot Dog and, you know, Caddyshack and all those characters. It's like, yeah, let's just amp it up in this character.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think he's kind of a perfect character for this movie because he's just a joke. Like he's he's just got that like perfect. He's a butthead. That's like the only word for him. And I don't know.
He is totally it. But it's like, it's so convincing.
Mhm.
Right. It's
Yeah,
just
he's like
if you-
believable.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's believable.
met
So
that
when
guy.
he's like,
yeah.
it's just all handsy and stuff, you're just like, oh God, there's a part of me that just feels like, I don't know if there's a line here between.
He's the worst, but he does it well. It's a very well played part.
And I mean, I think that's part of the way in which, and all three of these movies, I think, are still regarded as generally feminist films in a certain light, right? I don't think that's their primary claim to fame necessarily. But I think that's part, right? Because even in the first one, and Craig, you mentioned it was sort of written, it's written very much in a parody, and there's an almost identical character to TJ in the first one. Like another two boys who peep in the windows and stuff.
Yes, that's
and,
right.
And they're very.
Actually, I'm just gonna say one thing quick. That is actually like the one scene that repeats in all three movies.
Yeah,
is the guys watching
Oh,
through
that's
the
funny.
windows, and is this heaven? Like
Yeah.
that's in all three movies.
That's funny. But that is part of the way in which they were written feminist, is like that. It's all about sort of men being awful to these young women, and these young women
Right.
having full internal lives, which women often don't in movies. So I think that's a part of why he's so genuinely terrible. But I also, to just tack onto that, in the first one, even you say the way it's made is pretty straightforward, but even the way the movie is made is really highlighting the lechery that's being demanded of, right? There's like that shower scene where it's every female character who's going to be in the movie takes a shower together and they have a conversation, and the camera just slowly pedestals up and down their bodies. It's so aggressive. And I think that carries at least through the second one. I imagine also through the third, where part of what it's doing is it's being like, this is what you came here for, right? It's a very it's almost like Michael Haneke, right?
Yeah, it's what I grew up with. It was like, you wanted to watch a comedy in the 80s. It's like, yeah, this is what you're getting. You want to watch a horror film, you're gonna get this.
But I feel like most movies serve it to you in a way where they're trying to be respectful of your lecherous wishes, and this movie feels like it's snarling at you.
Right.
I agree with that. I could see that. The other thing you mentioned, that it's taking from the first film, the window peeking and all that stuff. But the film does have a lot of flashbacks from the first film,
right,
that they use actual footage. And the character Courtney, her sister from the first film, well, it's funny. Courtney is also in the first film, but a different actor, and she's the younger sister of the person who's tormented mostly in Slumber Party Massacre 1.
Yeah.
This character is now in an asylum in number 2, and Courtney's grown up and is having a lot of dreams about her sister in this asylum, and this character showing up who is kind of drilling through walls, and it's so Wes Craven.
Mm-hmm.
This film is obviously chasing the popularity of Nightmare on Elm Street in terms of the lighting, in terms of the dream work and the kind of the humor. And there's even some tips of the hat to them in it. I believe like some of the characters are like,
the cops are Voorhees and Krueger.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, like,
You're like, I already saw it, but I see you.
Right. But I thought they chose some pretty interesting stuff to pull into the second one that got me kind of more invested in the story than the first one. I was kind of surprised because I kept wondering about like, oh, what's going on with the sister? Yeah. Is this based in reality? Is this projection? Is she able to see into her sister's life through her dreams? Like, I was already running with it, right? As just watching the movie, like, oh, okay, let me speculate here. And it's kind of like, well, that's fool's gold. Like, you're working too hard. Jim, in any of your films, do you ever do callbacks from various things that you've made? A little tip of the hat to something that you loved and something you made?
I mean, I steal from other people more than I reference myself, but I do. I hold on to, there's specific art that I keep from various movies there's like, I mean, you can't see it, but there's a paint by numbers of flamingos over there that's from Slow Creep that's showed up in a couple of things. There's a couple of stuff. There's a ceramic cat that sits on a shelf in Slow Creep that's it's in my house right now, and I've written it into 2 other scripts, so I have plans to put it in other things in the future. There's like objects that I fall in love with.
That seems like it'd be so tempting to do.
Yeah. Like,
you're just like, I just need to put this in here.
Yeah. I love things. I love things. There's a great Douglas Sirk quote. You can't make movies about things. You can only make movies with things. Love it. Things. I'm all about them.
Well, Greg, do you want to kind of expand on what happens with the band and where they end up going, the party and things like that?
Yeah, so one of them their dad has a cabin in this like golf community basically that's still being built.
They say it's a condo, but can a condo be a whole house?
It looked like a big condo, yeah, house condo, townhome. We'll split the difference. I love the setting of this movie because, it's a great horror movie setting. There's just no one around. It's like when they scream for help, it's like, there's no one here. Great. But they decide they're going to go for, Courtney's 17th birthday. They're going away, and like she was supposed to go visit her sister, and there's the line where she's like, Mom, I don't want to go to an insane asylum on my birthday. But yeah, the band goes. So yeah, the band goes on a road trip, and they bring all their gear. They're clearly sponsored by Yamaha, so this band with no name has clearly had some success.
I know, that was so weird. There's even that song in it where they're like, I want to be in your Tokyo convertible. And they're like just like singing this song on the radio. And I was like, there's some weird alternate, like alternate universe stuff going on here. Like, this sounds like it should be a hit.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
And then, the sponsorships, you're right. You're like, oh, okay, definitely. They're like,
Slice.
here, use this. Yeah, Slice, right.
Yeah. But so they get to the house and they have a girls' night, and you mentioned the dance, but I think my favorite part of that scene is if you look at what they're eating, they have corn dogs, cheese whiz and champagne with peanut butter and jelly on the floor and chips. It's just like, oh my God, what is happening here?
You know what? I've done that when I was a teenager. I was dangerously close. It'd be Mountain Dew, some Dorito chips, Cool Whip, and, like whatever you could find. Because you're just grasping at straws. You're like, oh, I'm not allowed to have this. I'm not allowed to have this. I'm just kind of into it.
I also see, maybe I'm digging too hard, but I see that as another sort of element of the sort of broad feminism that goes through these movies, where they're just allowing these young women to be people in a way that movies are often so demure with the way they play young women. But in the first two, at least, again, probably the third, there's a scene where they're just eating piles of trash. They're like so, and no one in these movies is ever like, I'm too fat. They're just like,
right,
give me this garbage, which is it's so relatable and human, and I love it.
But then the guys show up a day early. The girls had invited them, but they show up early, and
TJ and what was the other character's name?
Jeff. I think it was Jeff.
Yeah, let's say Jeff. That's
Jeff.
a pretty safe bet. Jeff and TJ all the way every day.
But yeah, I don't know. Would this maybe be a good time to introduce the driller killer?
Yes, let's talk about the driller killer, which is weird because
it's an Abel Ferrara movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what that
came out way
this.
before the first one. It's like 70s.
Right.
Yeah.
And so in the first one, there is a driller killer.
I watched Abel Ferrara's Driller Killer once because I thought it was going to be I thought it was a sequel to the first one of these movies, and I was so mad.
Oh, no. Very tonally different.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the first one, it's it's a drill.
Yeah.
Killing people. And this one, it is a rocker dude who looks like a better looking version of Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh yeah, that's true.
In a leather jacket, and has his murder weapon is a drill, but it is attached to a red guitar. Rock and roll, baby.
Yeah.
And that's the driller killer in this. You're like, wait, the first one was just some dude going around killing people, who was like
He escaped from prison, right?
Right.
Yeah, an asylum or something. Oh yeah.
And now we have this thing that people aren't sure is real or not. Like, she's having dreams about this guy showing up, and also dreams about her sister dealing with this guy. What a weird choice. Like, it is so, again, of the time. They're like, you think about the first film made pre-MTV.
Yeah.
This film, MTV is like 4 years into existence, and they are chasing something with the visuals and the soundtrack and the way people are dressed. I was blown away I did not see that coming.
No. It's such a fascinating choice to make a sequel that's a direct sequel, because sometimes people make a sequel that is a conceptual sequel, right? That is using an idea, but you can find a whole trilogy where it's like, in all of them, they're about the world ending or whatever. But this is a direct sequel, but it doesn't follow any of the main protagonists from the first movie, and it doesn't have the same primary antagonist as the first movie, which is a very strange way to chase a direct sequel. But it is, and you sort of called out to this earlier, but the first one feels like it's a movie that is being made in a world where Halloween exists, and this one feels like it's a movie that's being made in a world where Nightmare on Elm Street exists. But they're super free to do that because it's just a completely different person. It's the first one is it's an escaped criminal who has done murders, who's going to do more murders, and in this one it's a dream monster, which is I don't know. I find that so exciting. I wish there were 12 movies in the sequence and they all took the central conceit in a wildly different direction.
What other musical instruments would be good to kill somebody?
Well, it wouldn't
besides
have
a
to be an
guitar?
instrument in the next one, right? In the next one, it could
No,
be...
I'm demanding it be an instrument. I think like I'd be really funny if like this guitar and this, this drumstick, or it just
Killer sousaphone would be good.
Oh,
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
to pull from the town that dreaded sundown, you put it on the end of a trombone.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
God,
It
that
is
was
a
vicious.
pretty good weapon. I think it's a pretty good special effect. But yeah, he comes out and he has, of course, a lot of catchphrases, which is very Freddy,
Mhm.
From Nightmare on Elm Street. He's like, be like, this is dedicated to the one I love, and I can't get no satisfaction.
Yeah.
He's like a greaser. He's like
Yeah.
50s, he's like rockabilly dude, which again is a really weird choice for something that is
1987.
supposed to, kind of new wave. I was like, give the guy kind of like a
Make him look like Flock of Seagulls.
exactly.
Or like Duran Duran,
Yes, killed by Duran Duran with some wraparound shades.
Yeah, I'm in for it. I wonder if there's something there about how old people are always like, and by old people I mean myself, are always like, the new music is terrible. I wonder if that's part, is it, he's like a rock purist where their stuff is too outside of the world of direct
Ooh,
rock
I
and
like
roll.
it.
Yeah.
Well, they are talking about it. At one point, the band says, someday we'll be in movies and rock videos.
Yeah.
Like that's their trajectory. Their dreams are big.
I think the reason the driller killer in this one is so effective, though, is because so often in sequels, it's like, oh, Freddy's he has this new ability in the next one. Like, you can stab him and he'll swallow the knife, stuff like that. But this one's just like, no, he's like, what if Prince hits his low in Purple Rain and turns the cloud guitar into an axe and then kills the time? It's like, that's a better movie. That's a better movie. It's like,
Right.
what if Neil Young just entered his Shocking Pinks phase and was like, hey, David Geffen, how's this for uncharacteristic of Neil Young? It's like, go off the rails. Just go off the rails. And
Well, as you both are obviously big horror fans, and Jim, you work in the genre. As a fan watching stuff, do you still get tense watching stuff, or have you just seen so much that you're just kind of like just enjoying the fun of it? For me, I'm always seeking the terror of it, which this film doesn't really have.
No.
It's pretty fun.
I
and
didn't get
silly.
tense during this movie, certainly.
it's hard when he's dancing down the halls. Like,
Although I feel like I did know who these people were in a way that I, in the first one, was a little bit more traditional, like archetypical characters. In this, I'm like, oh, I remember I was watching it with my wife, and when the drummer dies, she's like, oh, I really liked her. No,
she's the best.
not her.
She's so much fun.
Yeah.
She is really fun, and that's why I was like, oh, I kind of wish this wasn't a horror movie. I want to know more about these people.
You just want to hang out with the band.
Yeah. No, I think that's a credit to the writing, though, because if this movie had just like your typical, like, oh, we're a band, we're going to be cool, but they're just all goofballs, and it's like you want to hang out with them, like you want to be there that weekend with them. And like, when the horror starts, it's like, oh no, but they're not just like, oh no, I walked into the drill because I'm a dumbass. It's like,
right,
they're actually given a chance to survive. And I think that's because it was, this is the only franchise, we haven't said this yet, that is all 3 installments were written and directed by females, and that's kind of horrifying that it's the only one. Yeah,
amazing.
From what I've seen, but this movie loves its characters, and that I think makes them matter in a better way, because it's with the bad guy that's this out there, you could so easily just turn it off, but even he's well written, if you ask me.
I agree. So often horror movies are just about the body count, right? They're like, how are these people going to die, and when, and what's it going to look like? But this one is very much about empathy, right? It's about you having some connection with these people, and then when you die, even though it's all ridiculous, it is a little bit of a bummer when they die.
They seemed believable. They were having fun. They seemed like they had a connection. Like when they're laughing together, it felt pretty genuine.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, if you liked a John Hughes film, you'd be like, oh, these people are friends. They've hung out together. There's a real, I thought that was kind of amazing, you know.
Yeah, their friendship feels lived in.
Right.
Wait, sorry, Chris. We blew off your last question.
Yes.
I'm tougher to scare these days. I mean, for people who don't know Split Tooth, we every October do a month dedicated to horror movies, and this is our 5th year this year that we just wrapped up, and I've watched a lot of horror now. I used to be terrified, like small things would keep me awake for a week, but no, I did not get scared during this movie. I was laughing too hard because I love this thing. This is right up my alley. I mean, Jim, you talk about party horror a lot, and this is very much in that vein. But the last movie that really got me was a movie. Oliver O'Sullivan's one of our writers. He wrote about a movie called The Nightmare, and it is a documentary by the guy who did Room 237, which is the like Shining conspiracy theory documentary. Okay. And it's a movie about sleep paralysis. And
forget it.
Yeah, no, it's horrible because like one of the characters is talking about sleep paralysis, and he's like, yeah, you know, I had this horrible thing, and then like all of a sudden my girlfriend started having it too after I told her about it. And yeah, I had sleep paralysis after that movie, and it was
Did you?
Like, yeah. Luckily, they tell you how to get out of it, though. They say roll on your stomach and like do the worm, and it'll snap you out of the dream. Whew, yeah. Didn't sleep for a week after that movie.
Wow,
Don't watch it if you're at all.
That's really
susceptible.
horrible. Like, was that a one and done thing, or?
Yeah. I just didn't sleep for a week, so it was fine. No, that movie scared me terribly.
It was shocked. I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm like, I feel like I need to drive over to your house and just make sure you're okay.
Give him a cuddle.
We need to sit down and have a talk.
This was like 3 years ago.
Movies should not do that to you. But
yeah, that's like real life The Ring.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It was Yeah. It was a weird. Well,
dream. that's our click not to pick and a pick not to click. So we'll do both those. Yeah. This film will not make you scared of rock and roll.
No.
Or sex.
No.
Or even drills.
No.
But you did mention earlier that the person who plays the driller killer also had a legitimate rock and roll career. And the year before this movie came out, under the name Adonis,
I think it's his real name, yeah.
The album's called Shadows. It sounds a little like this. It's so amazing to think that this music, Tim by the Replacements was the year before this. Like Coil's Horse Rotovator was out by this point. Just like, what a weird time in music that something in 86 could still sound like this and chase a dream of, this is rock and roll.
Yeah.
This is what it's all leading to. What a confusing time.
To be a music fan. It feels like everyone was mad about music in the late 80s. I was a child. But like watching movies and stuff from the era, it feels like everyone was always mad at each other. And I can kind of see why.
I think part of it was still an era where you could get picked on for liking the wrong music. So you were a new waver, you were a punker, you were a goth, you were a metal dude, you were, a jock. And, I was teased so much for liking stupid things. I mean, or like liking weird shit, and wearing a t-shirt.
Though.
Yeah, you were probably
right.
I
know, but it didn't. But what I'm saying is, it was a total, like a shield.
Sure.
And so I do feel like there were lines drawn, and there was like, oh, the heavy metal dudes don't like the new wave kids.
Yeah,
it was like a real thing. So I feel like the lines in the sand were really deep at that point. In terms of, you can't like this and I can't like that, and we'll never meet, And then as you get older, that softens, and then you're like, I love
everything.
All the stuff you
Turns
love,
out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think it happens to me, but I do feel like a lot of anger was from people just being like, no, I'm right, And you would, I just can't imagine somebody like rolling down the window and yelling at someone like, Wilco at somebody walking, like they did when I had a Devo shirt. Hey, new wave or Devo, you're like, ah.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, you were also wearing the energy dome, which is kind of asking for it.
I did. No, it's true. But I wanted to ask you, I have some song titles from the album.
Oh, great.
And some fake ones. And I want to read you some stuff. And you tell me if this was on Atanis's album from 1986, Shadows. You heard the music.
I should have
studied. I'm going to read some. And you tell me if you think it's on it or not. Dark Knight.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no.
It is on the album.
Damn it.
Tina.
No.
Yes.
It is on the album.
Ha! 2 points, Jim.
Escape.
Yes, I think that was the one I listened to.
It's on the album.
Yes.
Crazy in the Dark.
No.
It's called Shadows. I'm going to say yes. Oh, that's
It's on the album. Let's Live Together.
No, it would be about death.
It's on the album.
Okay, they're all on the album, aren't they? That's the key.
Talk to Me in the Rain.
Yes.
It's on the album. And it also has Sugar Summer, Shoot the Gun, and my favorite, The Bergman Affair.
Okay.
Sugar Summer was the I found you on YouTube a few days ago. That one.
Oh, it's so take a guess at what this album is going for on Discogs right now.
Ooh.
Oh, I looked. It was in. Jim, you go ahead. I'd know.
I mean, it's got to be discontinued. So I'm gonna go $65.
That's pretty spot on.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was like, who is getting this, right? Right. But then I was like, oh shit. Horror movie fanatics, of course. They're like, I need to put this next to, my VHS copy of this and my poster of it. I need the complete thing.
Yeah, exactly. Did you do any research into Atanis himself?
Yeah.
Hit me.
Because there are reasons why he may have been coming in kind of out of touch.
Yeah, this was wild. Tell us who his parents were. This was crazy.
So, Jim, his parents were the owners of a small pizza chain called Little Caesars.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
They also own the Detroit Lions. They also own a ton of real estate in Detroit.
Wings too.
His family still owns and manages. I found what's their last name? Illich. I found a Facebook group called the Terrible Illiches that just to this day chronicles the ways in which this guy's family is ruining Detroit.
Well, I saw that he was worth $4 billion in like the 90s, so he's that family.
So this is a nepotism movie.
So
you got a low, and you got a Little Caesar.
Yeah, I suspect the reason he is in it and doing songs and dances is they must have given money. They must have partially funded it.
I did watch the bonus feature on the Shout Factory release last night, and they did actually say he was the first audition, and the director was like, he was perfect, but I wanted someone physically larger. So they kept auditioning bigger guys, and she was like, he's too good. He's got the look. He's got the voice.
He's really good at it.
He's it.
He is so fearless and so psychotic.
Yeah.
And fun.
Fully commits to a weird role.
Yeah.
That, like, I kind of,
he should be a billionaire.
Exactly. That's it. He should be a billionaire, but it makes sense. Mama, Papa, I want to make a record, please.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes, here's your record. Mama, Papa, I want to be an actor.
I want to be a movie star.
Yes, exactly.
I think his dad was co-owners of the Detroit Red Wings with Marvin Gaye. They were in the group together, so I'm sure they had some contacts. Right?
Right. There you go. Big mystery there.
But his music was interesting because the first song, like my brother and I threw it on just out of curiosity, and it was like, okay, this could definitely be in any horror movie from like a 9-year span.
Sure.
But it kind of just sounds like a guy who heard Thriller and his life was changed. It's just like, I want to do that. Like, that's me.
It's a crossroads between Thriller and Boogie Nights. It has that vibe of like, taking it to the streets. It's just like earnest, like, all our music is like, kind of energy lover boy with a footloose energy and a little bit of flash dance and it's
I wish there was more logins in it.
Yes. Well, there was Trisha Loggins. I forgot to tell you, Trisha Loggins, who is Kenny Loggins' daughter. No, I'm just kidding. But...
You had me.
Yeah.
So another strength this movie has is before he's, corporeal. Like Courtney's hallucinating or something is going on. It's it's intentionally vague, but she's attacked by a headless chicken that pops out of the fridge.
So good.
She imagines she's eating a hand sandwich.
Yeah.
Like there's just all this weird stuff that
surreal,
she's just like,
surreal
I'm
stuff,
going crazy, and everyone's just like, oh, you just have a hangover. You had too many corn dogs last night.
Except TJ. TJ's like, this woman is insane, and we need to get rid of her.
Yes.
Right. She's no fun.
Throws
He's
her in
not
the
wrong.
pool. Yeah.
Yeah, he just threw in the pool, and that's not good
yeah.
either.
Yeah.
But yeah, she kind of looks like it's going to be the end, but it's still 40 minutes to go. So
yeah, but
I will. My big critique of this movie. Sorry, I'm swinging.
That's good.
It's related to that. Is that everything is once Adonis shows up and is like showing up, the movie is bonkers,
yes.
and I wish it were more earlier. I wish he was singing songs starting 25 minutes into the movie and shuffling around.
I get that. I feel like it does take a long time, but it is also some of those films I remember renting, it just took forever to get going. Sure. It's like it was not unusual for an hour plus to go by before.
Well, because effects are expensive.
Exactly. And they're like, we're going to tease you with some nudity here and some rock and roll and some drug culture, and cops are going to show up, and that's enough, right? We'll keep you there.
Can I just say, I think maybe the greatest strength this movie has is it's 75 minutes long.
Oh, yeah.
Like this one and the first one, you can watch back to back in 2.5 hours. Check my math on that, please.
Wow.
But,
amazing.
Like you can run a double header in under 3 hours, and they just fly by.
Even if you stop and make popcorn in the middle, you can still skirt by under 3 hours.
2 bathroom breaks, you can do it.
Yeah.
That's right.
But Jim, I think it gets bonkers. Like, I gotta ask you about this, especially the zit scene. So Sally's on the couch, and when she's like, "Oh, I have like the fastest growing pimple ever," and then it gets weird. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, sure. It's this woman who has no visible pimples, who's been complaining about a zit for a while, and then it's
our favorite character too. It's the drummer.
Yeah, it's the drummer.
She's the best.
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, I just have this. I can feel it under the surface of my skin." And then we cut away and cut back, and she has 5-inch diameter zit taking up most of her face. That then just explodes.
It's just like egg yolk.
And then she's dead for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's super gnarly. It is the most slime I think we get in the whole movie, which is...
Yes, definitely.
Oh, yeah. But then they throw another just like goofy joke in. They're like, oh, the cops come. And they're like, well, we haven't seen Sally, but... oh, no, we hear these old bones in the trash compactor.
Oh, right. Because they make you think that maybe she's been shoved in. Because here's what's happening at that point, right? They're trying to make you think that the main character is maybe doing the murders, right? Which is sort of a very loose thread that it's hard to get excited about and then disappears, right? I was just going to say, a lot of movies like this would chase that all the way to the end. Would let you get to the end of the movie and be like, was the driller killer real? Was she murdering all of her friends? But this movie doesn't do that. But it starts to do that.
Right.
I think it is also kind of a callback to the body in the fridge in the first one, because there's that scene where it's actually Courtney.
Man, where they open the refrigerator like 4 times, so
couple
fun.
times, right? Yeah,
she's just dangling. Yeah, I
did like that in the first one. So that was in the first one, right?
Yeah,
they're starting to blur together. Like I watched them back.
They're pretty
to back.
similar.
Yeah,
and the third isn't that much different. It follows a very, very similar form. But
and so the third is have any of the same storylines? Is it completely new?
Completely different characters. It's it's another slumber party, obviously, but they were at the beach playing, beach volleyball with very short shorts, and there was a creepy guy in like a black trench coat watching them like out of the corner of his eye, and then he shows up at the house and people start dying, and they're like, "Is it that guy?" But he doesn't say a word, and it gets weirder.
It's not no rock and roll.
No rock and roll. Well, maybe on the soundtrack a bit, but not
right. But there's no
not quite
no
like a
driller. Right. Wow. Yeah. No, I really loved the scene at the end where he's chasing her around, and she's climbing over rooftops and stuff like that. Yeah, it was again. It is a really smart location.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's nice that they're not like deep in the woods. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We've just seen it so much, but like in a house in an area that's all construction is a great way to be isolated in a new way.
Yeah, and it's a good way to go to your demise too.
Sure,
So.
Have either of you seen The Mutilator?
No.
Just look at me. Do you think I've seen The Mutilator?
Jim, have you? Sorry, Chris.
I don't believe I have.
It's like the only movie I can think of that's kind of similar, like location-wise, because they're like it's a a beach town where everyone leaves in the winter because the weather's too bad. And they're like, we'll just do we'll help my dad clean out quick, and then the guy with a hook starts killing people. But it's a fun. If you like Slumber Party Massacre 2, you might enjoy The Mutilator. The one thing I have written down is Sally. She's like, "Hey, I'm gonna write a hit song this weekend," and she sits down and it's like, I think the title is "What I Want Most Is a Pie in the Sky." It's
so
just like
good.
a food anthem. Like there's so much food in this movie that it just cracks me up, and I don't know if there's a reason behind it, but it just makes.
You didn't write down the other lyrics, did you?
I should have. It was like
I should have too. It's very funny. It's very fun. It's just like a little. Naive and like sweet. It's a cute. It's like almost a bubblegum pop song lyrics.
Yeah.
It's good.
I know there's like I want a fast car.
Yeah, it's a weird list of things.
It's like a bad Queen song. Yeah, like when they're writing about.
She's
cars.
like, here's some material shit, but really, sorry for cousin. Here's some material stuff, but really, what I want is a pie in the sky. Which is, what it is. It's that she says her ultimate goal is a pie in the sky, but that's just what a pie in the sky means, right? Is that like it's your dream goal? So it's just it's a fully fluff concept that she's chasing that has no meaning at all. Because what everyone wants is their pie in the sky, right?
Sure, that's amore, right? Isn't that what it's about?
That's a pizza pie.
Hey, you don't know.
Rock songs in movies are hard to make feel real.
Yeah,
it's just hard.
Yeah.
So you give something to somebody who is not a musician, and then you're like, I'm writing something that I feel is like what a 16-year-old might write.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they were really getting in the head of
16-year-old.
Exactly. And they're like, yeah, this is everything we know about them. This is the kind of thing they'd be going for. Because when I was 16, my lyrics were fucking horrible.
Oh, man, yeah.
So
which band was that? Death Midget?
That was Death Midget.
I think that's one of the greatest band names of all time, Chris.
You mean songs like "You're a Nation, I'm a Nation"?
Nice.
So "Pie in the Sky" is like pretty,
on point.
Pretty on point. Like it's like, but also they're leaning into a genre. Their band is of the it makes total sense that that's the kind of lyrics they'd write. It's just fun, bubblegum. They're singing about Tokyo convertibles and stuff. It's like that's like just their world.
I read a lot about this movie. Almost nothing good has been written about this movie. It's everything I saw, like the front page of Google. It's one guy had a decent thing, but I discredit it because in his review he says it's just a shame there isn't more plot.
Oh wow!
I think that is such a terrible take on this movie because that is how this movie gets ruined. If there's a backstory to how the driller killer became who and what he is, this movie collapses in the worst possible way. That's what they would do if they remade this movie. It would be like, you know,
they'd be like, well, we have to give him a 30-minute backstory. The plot is what ruins movies 90% of the time. Everything should have less plot. Everything almost universally.
Yeah,
we're gonna crack this. We're gonna crack this. Here's his backstory. Let's figure out his backstory.
Let's do it.
So, a frustrated Guitar Center employee late at night is told to wait late for another shipment to come in. He has a show that night, though. He has to choose between the show with his band or the job at Guitar Center.
I can hear the.
Oh, you know what it is? He has to. He has to hold the door because they're getting a special shipment. It's a demo, like Prince style guitar. There's only one. It's super special. They're getting it. It's going to be in a demo case for a week, and somebody has to be there to receive it.
But I feel like they have to be next to like a military surplus store as well, because there's got to be an accident where the guitar and the drill.
A hardware
combine.
store, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, there
a
you
hardware
go.
Store.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's coming together. I think he also calls the band to tell them, hey, just like see if you can push the set time back. I'm working here. And they're like, you're not serious about the band. You're out,
good,
right?
good.
So there's like a sense of he's pissed, right?
Yeah. He deserves revenge.
Right. So what he does has nothing to do with the shipment. What he does is he decides he's going to steal the most expensive guitar from the store, and it's really high, right?
Yeah.
And he gets on this ladder, and he can't get it. It's too high. So he looks down. He sees a drill, and he's like, I'll use the drill on the top of this ladder to kind of like push it off the little holder it's on. And he does it. He does the drill. It kicks it off into his hand, but then whoa! He falls back onto the drill.
Okay.
And it goes through him. But at the same time, Jimmy Page shows up and he's like, hey, kid, you got the goods. I'm going to give you this. You get one more chance. And he shoots him with lightning.
Oh.
And then he's like, you know, what do you want me to do, master? And he's like, yeah, go torture these kids in this pop band.
It's a little bit. It turned a little The Crow at the end there.
Which I've never seen. So, of course.
Maybe while he's in the hospital, the only thing he has to read is the news report of the driller killer from the first movie. And that's
right,
how
because he does have
finds
to
the
escape.
girl.
I like
Prince.
it.
Yeah. And then
It's
Yes,
the first
there
thing
we
he
go.
sees after he comes to, and so then it's all he knows.
Yes, he can't remember his name or anything. Right. Wow. And maybe his name is like, sounds like Driller Killer a bit. It's like Dillard Krillard. It's his name, Dillard Krillard. So
yeah.
anyway, I thought it was worth a shot. You know, this is why
It was all worth it for Dillard Krillard.
Oh my God. But yeah, classic ending. And then a very Nightmare on Elm Street kind of, you know, close to the thing. Is it a dream? Is it real? What's the reality? I think I'm going to leave that for the listeners to be surprised. Like, what's real? What's not? Is the driller killer make it to the end and this and that?
You make it seem like there's a definitive answer. There's little to be surprised by.
I guess this is not, usual suspects where you're like, oh my God, I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not
okay.
like
Here he goes. Driller killer dies. She's in an insane asylum. There you go.
But he doesn't just die. She like waves a torch near him and he explodes into flames.
Right.
But also we know, yeah, exactly. We never know like how corporeal he was to begin with.
Right.
So there are no answers.
No, that's the brilliant thing about this film, man. Like, the more you watch it, you realize. And in fact, Jodorowsky watched this before making Santa Sangre. So,
They say he based Santa Sangre on this, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
That's what I read.
Well, at the end of every conversation, I ask the same question, but I tailor it to the movie we're talking about.
Sure.
So, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how many gold video cassette awards do you give this film?
I'm going 7.
Nice.
I'll say 8. I don't think it's like the greatest movie of all time or anything, but I love this to death. So it's just so much fun.
It is fun. And you know what? I had 7.5 here.
What?
So, yeah.
Splitting the difference.
Well, thank you both so much for joining me. This was probably our weirdest episode yet. But I love that you turned me on to this film that is like rock and roll horror. It's celebrated so much on the cover art and the posters. It was like the guitar with the drill is, it's very iconic. I had no idea, but like so many people, it's like you mentioned the film, the first thing they think of is the guitar with the drill, And the second thing they should think about is the future of this pop band's, the future of this pop band's potential.
Yeah.
Because, again, I need to see where this band went.
I want that Tokyo convertible 7-inch.
Yeah, me too. Well, we can hope and dream. But thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us,
really
Chris.
fun.
This was a blast. Yeah.